Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be exploring Nichiren Buddhism.
Yeah.
It's a branch of Buddhism I find super fascinating, and I'm really interested to unpack how it offers, this practical approach to unlocking inner peace and enlightenment and doing that while living a busy modern life.
Yeah, it's really intriguing how Nichiren Buddhism really emphasizes this idea that you can find that inner peace and enlightenment in the midst of your everyday life. You don't have to go to a secluded mountaintop.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I think, for a lot of people, a refreshing take because Buddhism itself has been around for centuries.
Right, 2,500 years.
Okay.
To be more precise.
Wow, okay. So, and it all started with Siddhartha Gautama.
Right, on his journey to self-discovery.
And he's the one who eventually became known as the Buddha, right?
Precisely.
So no tablets from the sky, just one man's really incredible journey to understanding life and its complexities and trying to teach that to others.
Exactly. And that's where Nichiren Buddhism comes in, because it takes these core teachings and really provides a practical framework for how we can apply them in our daily lives.
Okay, I'm hooked. Where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with the concept of the 10 states of life. Imagine a spectrum of not just emotions, but actual states of being that we all experience.
Okay.
So these states range from, the depths of suffering, symbolized by states like hell and hunger.
Hell and hunger, those sound pretty intense. How do these states actually show up in our lives? Are we talking about literal hunger pangs, or is it something more metaphorical?
It's more about the internal experience.
Yeah.
So, hell, for instance, represents that state of utter despair, feeling trapped with no escape. And then hunger speaks to this constant craving for something more, like you never feel satisfied. And, we all experience these states, these variations, even if it's just momentarily.
Okay, so you're saying that, we're not stuck in one state forever. We're constantly shifting and evolving.
Exactly. We're never static.
Right.
And Nichiren Buddhism really emphasizes that we have the power to shift these states. We can actually shift them towards enlightenment.
Wow, that's powerful. But how do we do that? What's the secret sauce?
It all comes down to the core practice, chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo.
Okay. Now, I've heard about this, but to be honest, chanting has always felt a bit mysterious.
It's like you benefit from electricity every day, right?
Oh, that's true.
But you don't need a degree in physics to flip a light switch. Chanting works similarly. You don't need to grasp every nuance to experience its positive effects.
I like that. So it's about tapping into a power that's already there, even if we don't fully get it, at least initially.
Exactly. Chanting connects us to this life force of the universe. And in doing so, it ignites positive transformation from within.
Okay, I like where this is going. Now, let's talk about another concept that I think is really important here, karma. And this is something that's often misunderstood. So what's the Nichiren Buddhist take on this idea of karma?
Well, it's not some predetermined fate or a scorecard, keeping track of your every move.
Okay, so it's not like I tripped and spilled my coffee this morning because of something I did in a past life.
Not quite. It's all more dynamic than that. Karma, in this sense, is about the continuous interplay of causes and effects that stem from our every thought, word, and action.
Okay, so it sounds like with this understanding, chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo can actually help us change our karma.
Yeah, think of it like this. Think of polishing a tarnished mirror. The mirror's inherent potential for clarity is always there, right?
Yeah.
But it might be covered in dust, dirt, whatever. Chanting helps to polish that away and reveal our true brilliant self.
So we're not adding something that's missing, we're uncovering something that's already there within us.
Precisely. Or, to use another metaphor, imagine a well.
Yeah.
And chanting allows us to draw fresh water from that wellspring of wisdom within each of us.
I'm really starting to see how these concepts, the 10 states, chanting, karma, all connect. But enough about the theory, right? How did this philosophy actually play out in the real world? There's a whole organization dedicated to this, right?
There is. It's called the Soka Gakkai International, SGI for short. And they're dedicated to promoting Nichiren Buddhism globally. And their history is fascinating. It's rooted in this deep commitment to individual empowerment and transforming society, even in the face of, real adversity.
Because I know the founders, Tsunesaburo Makaguchi and Choshi Toda, faced some pretty serious opposition for their beliefs. So tell me a little bit about that. What were those challenges, especially during, I think it was World War II, right?
Yeah, so they very openly opposed the Japanese government's stance on the war. and it led to their persecution.
Talk about standing up for your convictions. That takes guts.
It really does. Makaguchi especially was a true visionary. He was incredibly passionate about education reform in Japan at the time. He really saw how the existing system stifled individuality, basically molding children into these obedient citizens for the state.
Yeah, which I can see how that might not exactly lead to happiness and fulfillment.
Absolutely not. Makaguchi truly believed in nurturing each student's unique potential. He encouraged critical thinking and problem solving, which he called Soka, or value creation.
Oh, God, interesting.
Yeah, and you can imagine how that clashed with the government's demands for obedience, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So what happened? Did he back down?
Not a chance. Even facing imprisonment, he and his followers refused to compromise their beliefs. They truly believed in the power of education and individual transformation. Sadly, Makaguchi died in prison.
Oh, wow. That's awful. What happened to the movement then?
Well, it didn't die with him. Toda, who was Makaguchi's disciple, he picked up the torch, so to speak, and he had also been in prison. Yeah, but when he was released, he rebuilt the organization, renamed it Soka Gakkai, and really emphasized how Nichiren Buddhism could help people heal, especially in post-war Japan. People had lost so much.
Right. So, I mean, that must have really resonated with a lot of people, this message of hope, this idea of rebuilding after so much loss.
It did. Toda had this way of making these complex Buddhist concepts accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. He taught that through chanting and an inner transformation, anyone could change their karma and build a better life for themselves.
Wow, what a powerful message. So did this message of hope continue to spread?
It did. It really started to take root and grow internationally when Daisaku Ikeda became the third president in 1960.
Ikeda. Now, he's another fascinating figure, and from what I've gathered, he's deeply involved in peace activism, education, and cultural exchange. Is that right?
He is. And under his leadership, the Soka Gakkai really expanded its global reach and started contributing to a wide range of humanitarian causes. And their work is quite impressive, from environmental activism to promoting education. The SGI really puts their words into action.
That is quite a journey. To go from a small group of educators in pre-war Japan to a global movement.
Yeah.
What about their work did you find most, impactful when you were researching?
It's their multifaceted approach. So they don't just advocate for peace, they actively try to make it happen. For instance, they have these really powerful compilations of World War II experiences from Soka Gakkai members. One that comes to mind is called Cries for Peace.
Wow. Yeah, those first-hand accounts are always incredibly powerful. What is the main message that they're trying to get across in those stories?
I think it serves as a very real reminder of the devastating human cost of war, and in turn, really highlights the urgent need for peace-building efforts. And it's not just about preserving the past. They have incredible educational programs, particularly in Brazil, that are based on Makaguchi's teachings that have had a remarkable impact.
That's incredible. So they're tackling these really complicated issues from a bunch of different angles. Individual transformation, concrete action. That's really impressive.
Exactly. And they haven't shied away from environmental issues either. Their dedication to preserving the Amazon rainforest is one very concrete example of their commitment to our planet's well-being.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important, especially today, this idea that we're all interconnected. You know what I mean? Like, what we do in one part of the world ultimately affects us all.
It does. And the SGI's commitment to social good is really a testament to their dedication to putting Nichiren Buddhist teachings into action.
Yeah, it's about making a difference.
Exactly.
Now, I do know that Toda, he was very vocally opposed to nuclear weapons. So how does the SGI, how do they approach this incredibly important issue today?
It's still very central to their peace activism. Toda called nuclear weapons absolutely malignant. He called them a threat to our very right to life. And the SGI has taken those words to heart. So they're not just passively opposed to nuclear weapons, they're actively trying to abolish them.
So more than just, being against them, they're actually trying to get rid of them. Wow. Okay, what does that look like? How do they try to get rid of nuclear weapons?
Well, for example, they were deeply involved in the Abolition 2000 campaign that was pushing for, global nuclear disarmament. They've organized massive petition drives. They've collected millions of signatures. And one of the most powerful things they did was create this exhibition called Nuclear Arms, Threat to Our World.
Nuclear arms, threat to our world.
Okay, yeah, and it's been traveling the globe since the 1980s.
Wow.
And their main goal, raising awareness about the horrific consequences of a nuclear war.
Right. Because I think sometimes it's easy to forget, or to push that to the back of your mind. But when you really think about the devastating effects of these weapons, it's really important to be reminded.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But the exhibition doesn't just present the grim reality, It also encourages individual responsibility. It stresses that we all have a responsibility to speak out against these weapons and work towards a future of peace. They even presented this exhibition at the United Nations headquarters.
Wow. Taking it to the world stage, it seems like a theme we keep coming back to. The SGI, they're not afraid to take a stand against things that they see as unjust.
Yeah, you could say that. And their commitment to human rights is another essential part of their work. They've got these educational programs and exhibitions that highlight human rights issues around the world.
Okay, but that's still kind of broad strokes. Can you give me a concrete example of how they go about, creating dialogue and understanding between different cultures? Because that's something I'm always really interested in.
They really believe in the power of cultural exchange. So, for example, they organize these vibrant festivals around the world. Celebrating music, dance, art, you name it.
Oh, wow.
It's an amazing way to break down barriers and really foster appreciation for diverse traditions.
It's one thing to read about a culture in a book, but it's a whole other thing to experience it firsthand through music and dance and art, right?
Right. And it goes beyond just celebration. They also have student exchange programs where young people from different countries can connect, learn from each other.
Yeah, I can only imagine what an amazing experience that would be for a young person.
It's incredible. It broadens their perspectives, challenges preconceived notions. It all comes back to their belief that peace really starts at the individual level. It's about personal transformation and how we interact with one another.
That makes a lot of sense.
It really does.
Now, I do know that they do a lot of work in the Amazon, which is amazing. But what about here, closer to home? What are some of the things they do to address environmental issues on a more local level?
Well, they've been organizing massive cleanup campaigns for years. For instance, in Korea, members will volunteer to clean up rivers, parks, public spaces.
It's incredible to see them taking ownership of their communities like that. It's not just about addressing global issues, but also about taking direct action to make a difference right where they are.
Right, so it's a two-pronged approach, really. It's the global and the local, which is really fantastic. Now, their environmental work, the commitment to peace, to human rights, it's a very holistic approach. But how can one organization, even one as large as the SGI, expect to handle these massive global issues?
That's where their fundamental philosophy comes in. They believe in the power of the individual.
Okay, so it's not just about what the SGI accomplishes as an organization, but it's about empowering their members to also be catalysts for change. Precisely. They encourage their members to be active, engaged citizens in their communities, and to use their unique talents and passions to contribute. It's about creating that ripple effect, where positive change starts with the individual and radiates outward.
I love that. It's like cultivating a network of everyday heroes.
Exactly.
Who are all working towards this common goal of a more just and compassionate world.
And they've actually put their guiding principles into writing. It's called the SGI Charter.
The SGI Charter.
And it outlines their commitments to peace, culture, education, all of it.
Yeah.
It's really a roadmap for their action and a testament to their dedication.
We've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from, the core ideas of Nichiren Buddhism all the way to this impressive global organization. It's clear that this branch of Buddhism goes so far beyond, just meditation.
It does. It's about taking action. It's about bringing these practices into the real world to make positive change in our own lives and the lives of others. And honestly, their practical advice on incorporating these teachings into our daily routines is something we can all benefit from.
Yeah, I agree. Now, before we move on, there is one more thing that I want to touch upon. We've mostly focused on the positive aspects, the peace, compassion, human potential, all that good stuff. But I'm sure, like any tradition, there are misconceptions about Nichiren Buddhism, probably some criticisms as well.
Of course, no tradition is immune to misconceptions.
Yeah, so let's address them. What are some of the most common ones that you've come across?
One of the biggest ones is that it's a cult or some get-rich-quick scheme.
A cult.
Really? I know. But people hear about chanting for what you want, and they just they go to that place of material wealth.
Right. It's easy to see how that perception could come about, especially today when we're just surrounded by these messages about, manifesting your dream life and overnight success.
Exactly. But that's a really, really surface-level understanding of chanting. while it can help us overcome challenges in our lives and it can help us create change, it's not about, manipulating the universe to just give you whatever you want.
So we're not chanting for a winning lottery ticket.
No. It's about aligning yourself with your highest potential. We've talked about this, that inherent Buddha nature, and tapping into your wisdom and your courage to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
So it's about inner transformation, not like external manipulation.
Precisely. And that journey of inner transformation, that's what ultimately leads to true and lasting happiness, not, just accumulating more things.
Right. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, not about, having the best of everything.
Exactly. And that is a message that I think gets lost a lot today.
Yeah, definitely. It's about realizing that true happiness comes from within. It comes from aligning yourself with your values and, trying to do some good in the world.
You said it perfectly. And that is really the heart of Nichiren Buddhism.
Okay, so it's about looking beyond, some of those maybe superficial interpretations and really understanding what the deeper meaning is behind the practice.
Exactly. It's about approaching it with an open mind and a willingness to look beyond those stereotypes.
Now, you mentioned that some people view Nichiren Buddhism as a cult, which I imagine, it's a sensitive topic.
Right.
What would you say to someone who might be listening and thinking, is this a cult?
It's a fair question. And to be honest, it's understandable that would come up, especially given what we know about cults,
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that a real defining characteristic of a cult is manipulation and control, right?
Right.
It's about isolating members and demanding obedience. And the SGI, they just don't operate that way. Everything that we've talked about, it points in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it does. They encourage independent thought, critical thinking, engaging with the world, not, hiding from it.
Exactly. And they really encourage their members to use those skills to make a positive impact on the world, not blindly following some, charismatic leader.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. The SGI does have this really strong sense of community, but it values individual expression. And it encourages you to be your authentic self, which I think is really special. It's about finding that balance between personal growth and coming together, taking action together.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not about trying to fit into some kind of mold. It's about bringing your whole self to the practice, whatever that looks like.
Exactly, which, again, really embodies those core principles of Nichiren Buddhism. It emphasizes that personal journey and then how we take all of that and engage with the world.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected and that we all have the potential to create something better.
Beautifully said.
And that message, it's universal, right? You don't have to be a Buddhist to appreciate that.
Exactly. It's a message that has the power to bring people together from all walks of life.
That brings up another really interesting point. We've mentioned this idea of interconnectedness a few times. What does that actually mean in the context of Nichiren Buddhism?
Right, so it's this core Buddhist concept that's often called dependent origination. And basically it means that nothing exists in isolation. Everything is connected. And our actions, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, they have ripple effects throughout this web of life.
So it's not just some nice-sounding philosophy. It has practical implications for how we live our lives, right?
Absolutely. Recognizing our interconnectedness encourages us to act with more awareness, with more compassion, because we're realizing that what we do to others, we ultimately do to ourselves and vice versa.
Right. It's about recognizing that we're not isolated individuals, that we're part of something much greater than ourselves, and that our actions have consequences that extend far beyond our immediate sphere.
Exactly. It's about making a conscious effort to live in a way that benefits not just ourselves, but all beings.
It makes me think of that quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world."
Exactly. And Nichiren Buddhism really emphasizes that. True. Lasting change starts with the individual. And as more people take that to heart, as more individuals embark on a journey of self-transformation, we collectively contribute to a more just and peaceful world.
Now, another term that I've heard associated with Nichiren Buddhism is human revolution. What does that look like in practice? Because it's a powerful phrase, but I think it can also be kind of vague.
It's not about, waking up one day a completely different person or trying to achieve some level of external perfection. It's about challenging our own limitations and striving to become the best versions of ourselves. It's an ongoing process.
So it's not about seeking validation from others. It's about this journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. It's about looking inward, identifying our negative patterns, and tapping into our potential for compassion, courage, and wisdom. We all have that potential within us.
That reminds me of the metaphor of the tarnished mirror.
Exactly. Human revolution is the process of polishing away those layers of negativity and self-doubt to reveal that inherent brilliance within us all.
And how does chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo play into this process?
It provides the energy, the focus that we need for that polishing. It's like a workout for our spirit, helping us to strengthen our resolve to create that positive change.
I like that. It's about showing up consistently, even when we don't see those results right away.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this process of human revolution isn't confined to just our inner world. It extends outward, influencing our relationships and the world around us. It's about taking that inner transformation and using it to make a positive impact.
It all comes back to that idea of interconnectedness, doesn't it?
It does. Our lives are not lived in isolation. Every thought we have, every action we take creates ripples that extend outwards, impacting the world in ways we may never fully comprehend.
Now, I know Nichiren Buddhism doesn't shy away from the realities of suffering. It acknowledges that suffering is a part of life. But it doesn't treat it as something to be feared or avoided. It seems to have a different perspective. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. It's not about pretending that everything's perfect,
Right.
or adopting that kind of good vibes only attitude, because that's not realistic.
It's not. Life is messy. Life is hard.
Exactly. And Nichiren Buddhism teaches that it's okay to acknowledge that. In fact, it's essential to acknowledge that. It's about facing those challenges head on and using them as opportunities to develop greater compassion, wisdom, and resilience.
That's a really refreshing perspective. It's not about pretending suffering doesn't exist. It's about finding meaning and purpose even in the midst of life's challenges.
Precisely. It's about transforming our experiences, the good and the bad, into sources of strength and using them to fuel our journey of personal growth and transformation.
But what about those situations where we feel powerless to change what's happening around us? Like we can't control external events no matter how much inner work we do. How does Nichiren Buddhism approach those situations?
That's such an important question because, the truth is we can't control everything that happens to us, right? But Nichiren Buddhism teaches us that we can control our responses.
So it's about cultivating that inner strength to navigate those challenging situations, even when we feel like we're surrounded by chaos.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing and accepting what we can't change, but not losing sight of our own power. Our power to choose how we respond, our power to create a better future for ourselves and those around us.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about something that I find incredibly powerful. This idea of dialogue and engagement. Because Nichiren Buddhism, it doesn't encourage us to withdraw from the world.
You're right. It's the opposite, actually.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the importance of engaging with the world around us, building bridges of understanding and compassion through open and honest dialogue.
So it's not about, isolating ourselves on a mountaintop somewhere, trying to achieve enlightenment in a vacuum.
No, not at all. It's about bringing those principles of peace, wisdom, and compassion into the real world, the messy world, and engaging in constructive conversations, even with people who hold completely different views than our own.
It's about listening to understand, not just listening to respond, right? Because I think that's something we often forget in today's world.
It's so true. We're so quick to judge, to dismiss, to shut down conversations before they even begin. But Nichiren Buddhism encourages us to slow down, to really listen, to seek to understand perspectives that are different from our own.
And this emphasis on dialogue, this isn't just some kind of abstract idea, right? It translates into real-world actions.
Exactly. And the SGI is a perfect example of that.
How so?
Well, look at their cultural festivals, their educational programs, their peace initiatives. They're out there creating those opportunities for dialogue. They're bringing people together from diverse backgrounds, encouraging those interactions, and really fostering genuine human connection.
That's fantastic. It's about celebrating our diversity, right? Instead of letting it divide us.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our differences make us stronger, and that by embracing those differences and engaging in respectful dialogue, we can learn and grow together, creating a much richer and more harmonious society.
And that commitment to dialogue, that extends beyond just interpersonal relationships. It's about engaging with different cultures, different faiths, and challenging that us versus them mentality that's so prevalent in the world today.
You got it. It's about recognizing that despite our differences, we're all part of one human family, one global community, and we have a shared responsibility to care for each other and to create a more just and peaceful world for all.
It all circles back to that core Buddhist teaching of interconnectedness, doesn't it? Recognizing that what we do to others, we ultimately do to ourselves.
Exactly. We're all in this together. We're all interconnected. And by living with that awareness, by acting with compassion and understanding, we can begin to heal those divisions and create a brighter future for everyone.
So it's not enough to just talk the talk. We have to walk the walk, right? We have to put these principles into action in our daily lives if we want to see real change.
Absolutely. It's about translating those ideals, those lofty aspirations, into concrete action. It's about making a conscious choice every single day to live in alignment with our values and to be a force for good in the world.
Now, earlier, you mentioned something that I think warrants further exploration, this idea of our inherent Buddha nature. What exactly does that mean? Because it can sound a bit, well, mystical or abstract to someone who's new to Buddhism.
It does sound a bit mystical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's actually quite simple. The idea is that every single one of us has the potential for enlightenment. It's not something that's reserved for, monks on a mountaintop or spiritual masters. It's already present within each and every one of us.
So it's like we're born with this seed of enlightenment inside us, and it's up to us to nurture it and help it grow.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not something that we have to earn or strive for outside of ourselves. It's already there. It's inherent.
Okay, so then what's the point of practicing Nichiren Buddhism if we already have this Buddha nature within us?
That's a great question. The practices, like chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, they help us to tap into that inherent potential. They help to uncover and cultivate our innate wisdom, compassion, and courage. It's about removing the obstacles that prevent us from seeing our own brilliance, from living in alignment with our true nature.
So it's not about becoming someone we're not, it's about becoming who we truly are. It's about removing those layers of conditioning, those limiting beliefs that prevent us from recognizing our own potential, our own inherent worthiness.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we are already whole, we are already complete, and we have everything we need within us to live a meaningful and fulfilling life.
And is this concept of inherent Buddha nature connected to a specific deity or external power?
That's important to note. It's not about worshiping a deity in a traditional sense.
Okay.
It's about awakening to our own divine potential. And really, it's about recognizing that same potential in all beings.
So it's not about seeking answers outside of ourselves.
Exactly.
It's about turning inward. It's about looking within to find that source of wisdom and compassion that already exists within us.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing our own inherent power to make a positive difference. And it's a message of empowerment, a call to action that reminds us that we're not just passive bystanders in our own lives or in the world. We are active participants who have the power to create the kind of change we want to see.
I really love that. Now, you've talked about this idea of taking action within Nichiren Buddhism several times, so I think it's important to clarify it's not enough to just talk about peace or chant for a better world. We have to actively work toward those goals, right?
Absolutely. Nichiren Buddhism stresses that we need to take concrete steps, both individually and collectively, if we want to create the kind of world we envision. It's about putting our ideals into action, translating those aspirations into tangible change.
So how do we do that? What are some practical ways we can bring those ideals to life?
It can take many forms. You could engage in a dialogue with someone who has completely different views than your own, trying to understand their perspective and find common ground. You could volunteer your time to support a cause you believe in, no matter how big or how small. You could make more conscious choices about the impact you have on the environment. Or it could be something as simple as offering a helping hand to someone in need.
I love that. Even the smallest acts of kindness can create a ripple effect.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that every effort matters, no matter how small it may seem.
It's about showing up with compassion and contributing to the collective effort to create a better world.
Precisely. It's about understanding that we're all in this together.
And that we all have the power to make a difference.
Exactly. It's a powerful message of hope, of unity, and of possibility. And it's a message that the world desperately needs right now.
But I have to ask, with everything going on in the world today, with all of the challenges, the uncertainty, how do we hold on to hope? How do we maintain that belief in a better future when it seems like things are getting worse, not better?
Yeah, I hear you. That's a question I grapple with too. It's easy to feel like overwhelmed by all the negativity, right?
Definitely. It can be hard to stay positive.
It really can. But Nichiren Buddhism teaches us that hope isn't passive. It's not just waiting around hoping things will magically get better.
So it's more than just like positive thinking.
It's about taking action. It's
Yeah.
about actively creating the conditions for a better future through our choices, our words, and our deeds.
So we're not just hoping for a better future, we're actively creating it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have more power than we realize. Even in the darkest of times, there's always a spark of hope, a glimmer of possibility. We just have to choose to see it. We have to nurture that spark and fan the flame, so to speak.
I love that visual. It's about choosing to believe that change is possible, even when it seems impossible.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that unwavering belief in the human spirit and our capacity for growth, compassion, and change.
Yeah.
That belief is incredibly powerful.
So we can't just sit around and wait for things to get better. We have to be the change we want to see in the world.
Yes. And every act of courage, every act of kindness, no matter how small, contributes to that change.
We're all in this together, right?
We are. And by supporting each other, by working together towards a common goal, we can overcome even the most daunting challenges.
This reminds me of something we were discussing earlier, the SGI's emphasis on global citizenship. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because it seems like such a powerful antidote to the division and conflict we see in the world today.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our perspective. It's about looking beyond these narrow, limited definitions of ourselves, our nationality, our ethnicity, our religious beliefs, and recognizing our shared humanity.
It's about expanding our circle of compassion to include all beings.
Beautifully said. It's about understanding that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others, regardless of where they live or what they believe. We're all connected. We're all part of one global family.
And when we truly embody that understanding, it changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. It changes how we see the world, how we interact with each other, and how we approach the challenges we face together. It allows us to tap into our shared humanity, our collective wisdom, and our infinite potential to create a brighter future for all.
Now, I want to circle back to a topic we touched upon earlier, the concept of reincarnation. It's one of those things that often comes up in conversations about Buddhism, but I think there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding around it. So let's break it down. What does Nichiren Buddhism actually teach about reincarnation?
You're right, it can be confusing. In Nichiren Buddhism, it's not as simple as, dying and being reborn into a new body in a linear way, like some people might think.
So it's not about, trying to figure out if you were Cleopatra in a past life?
Not quite. Nichiren Buddhism views life and death as two phases of this eternal, ongoing cycle. It's a bit like a wave in the ocean.
I like that analogy. How so?
Well, just as a wave rises, crests, and then dissolves back into the vastness of the ocean, so too does our life energy flow through this continuous cycle of death and rebirth. Our individual lives are like those waves, unique and temporary. But the energy that animates us, that life force, it's eternal.
So it's not so much about a distinct me being reborn into a new body, but more about the flow of life energy continuing on, taking on different forms at different times.
Exactly. And this cycle, it's not some far-off event. It's happening constantly. Every moment is a microcosm of this larger cycle of death and rebirth.
So in a sense, we're constantly dying and being reborn in each moment.
That's the idea. Each breath we take, each thought we have, each experience contributes to this ever-changing flow of life.
I can see how that would be a difficult concept to grasp, especially for those of us who are new to Buddhism.
It definitely can be. It's one of those concepts that you really have to kind of sit with and ponder for a while. But once it starts to click, it can be incredibly liberating.
Liberating in what way?
Well, it frees us from clinging so tightly to this idea of a fixed self. This belief that who we are in this lifetime is all that we are.
We're so attached to our identities, our stories, our experiences in this lifetime.
Exactly. But when we can begin to see life and death as part of this larger interconnected cycle, it frees us from that limited perspective. It allows us to see ourselves as part of something much grander, something eternal.
It allows us to embrace the unknown, to find peace and acceptance, even in the face of death.
Precisely. And that kind of peace, it's not about giving up or resigning ourselves to fate. It's about recognizing that even in the face of death, there's this underlying continuity to life. There's a beauty and a mystery that we can embrace.
It's a reminder that the journey continues, that even in death, there is no true end, only transformation.
Exactly. And that realization can be incredibly empowering. It frees us to live more fully, to embrace each moment with gratitude and wonder, knowing that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how someone who's listening to this, who's maybe feeling inspired or intrigued by what we've been discussing, how can they explore Nichiren Buddhism further?
That's a great question. And I think the most important thing is to approach it with curiosity and an open mind. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to explore different resources, to connect with others who are already practicing.
So where's a good place to start?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, the Soka Gakkai International, SGI, is a great resource. They have centers and communities all over the world, and they're incredibly welcoming to newcomers.
And I imagine they're not hard to find with their global presence and all.
Exactly. You can easily find them online, or you could ask around. You'd be surprised how many people you might know who are already practicing.
And for someone who's brand new to Nichiren Buddhism, what can they expect if they reach out to the SGI? Is there like a formal initiation process or a set of beliefs you have to subscribe to right away?
Not at all. There's no pressure to convert or adopt any specific beliefs right away. It's all about exploration and learning at your own pace. Many people start by just attending meetings or events, getting a feel for the community, learning about the practices.
What kind of meetings and events are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Sure. A good place to start might be the discussion meetings. These are usually held in people's homes or at community centers, and it's a really relaxed and informal setting where you can connect with other members, share experiences, and learn more about Nichiren Buddhism.
It sounds very approachable, not your typical, serious religious gathering.
Definitely not. They're actually known for being quite lively and engaging.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's often music, and people will share their personal experiences with the practice.
It's more about building community and sharing wisdom than, listening to a lecture or something.
Exactly. It's about connecting with like-minded individuals and supporting each other on our spiritual journeys. And then there are also larger events and festivals, often celebrating Buddhist holidays or cultural traditions.
That sounds like fun. What a great way to experience the community aspect of Nichiren Buddhism.
It is. It's a beautiful celebration of diversity. And it's a chance to learn about different cultures and connect with people from all walks of life. And then, for those who want to dive deeper into the practice, there are also opportunities to learn how to chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo and incorporate it into their daily lives.
And that's something that anyone can do, right? You don't need to be a Buddhist scholar to start chanting.
Absolutely not. It's a practice that's accessible to everyone, regardless of your background or beliefs. The SGI provides a lot of support and guidance, so you don't have to feel like you're doing it all on your own.
It sounds like they're really focused on creating a supportive environment where people can learn and grow at their own pace.
Exactly. They're all about fostering a sense of community and creating a space where people feel supported and empowered to explore their own spirituality.
That's so important, especially in today's world where it's easy to feel isolated and disconnected.
It is.
Yeah.
And that sense of community, that shared commitment to growth and transformation, that's what makes the SGI so special. It's about recognizing that we're not alone, that we're all in this together, and that by supporting each other, we can create something truly extraordinary.
It's about creating a ripple effect of positivity and compassion that extends outwards into the world.
Precisely. It's a powerful reminder that we all have the potential to make a difference, and that even small acts of kindness and compassion can have a profound impact.
So to sum it up, if someone is curious about Nichiren Buddhism, a great first step would be to reach out to the SGI and see what it's all about.
I couldn't agree more. Nothing can replace that direct experience.
Yeah. You can read all the books in the world, but there's nothing quite like experiencing something firsthand.
You said it.
Now, before we move on to some final thoughts, there's one more thing that I want to address just to make sure we're covering all our bases. We've talked a lot about the positive aspects of Nichiren Buddhism, the emphasis on peace, compassion, human potential, all that good stuff. But like any tradition or philosophy, there are always going to be misconceptions, maybe even some criticisms.
Of course, that's only natural, right?
Right. So let's address some of those head on. What are some of the most common misconceptions you've encountered about Nichiren Buddhism?
One of the biggest ones, and we touched upon this briefly earlier, is that it's a cult or some kind of get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah, I can definitely see how someone might get that impression, especially if they're just hearing about it for the first time. It's easy to oversimplify or misinterpret what you don't understand.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there's this tendency in our society to latch on to those superficial interpretations without really delving deeper. People hear about chanting for what you want, and they immediately jump to this idea of material wealth or instant gratification, which is a very limited understanding of the practice.
Right, it's not about manipulating the universe to give you a new car or a winning lottery ticket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chanting can definitely help you overcome challenges and create positive change in your life. But it's not about bending the universe to your will. It's about aligning yourself with your highest potential, with that inherent Buddha nature that we've been talking about, and tapping into your inner resources, your wisdom, your courage, your compassion, to create a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
So it's about inner transformation, not external manipulation.
Precisely. And that inner transformation, that journey of growth and self-discovery, that's what ultimately leads to true and lasting happiness.
It's about recognizing that true happiness, true fulfillment, it doesn't come from outside of ourselves. It doesn't come from acquiring more possessions or achieving some arbitrary definition of success. It comes from within.
Beautifully said. It's about aligning ourselves with our values, living with purpose, and contributing to something greater than ourselves. That's where true and lasting happiness is found.
And that's a message that's often lost in our materialistic, achievement-oriented society.
It really is. We're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we need more, we need to do more, we need to be more to be happy.
And that's simply not true.
Exactly. Nichiren Buddhism reminds us that we are already enough, just as we are. We have everything we need within us to live a joyful and meaningful life.
So it's about looking beyond those superficial interpretations and really trying to understand the deeper meaning and intention behind the practice.
Precisely. It's about approaching it with an open mind, a willingness to learn, and a desire to connect with something greater than yourself.
Now, you mentioned that some people view Nichiren Buddhism as a cult, which is a pretty loaded term. What would you say to someone who has that concern?
It's understandable. The word cult carries a lot of negative baggage, and rightfully so. But I think it's important to remember that a defining characteristic of a cult is manipulation and control. It's about isolating members from outside influences and demand unquestioning obedience to a leader. And that's not at all what we see with the SGI.
Yeah, it seems like the SGI encourages the exact opposite of that: independent thought, critical thinking, and active engagement with the world.
Precisely. The SGI emphasizes personal responsibility and compassionate action. They encourage their members to think for themselves, to question, to engage in dialogue with people who hold different viewpoints, and to use their own unique talents and passions to make a positive impact on the world.
That's so different from the image of a cult that often comes to mind, which is more about blind obedience and unquestioning loyalty.
Exactly. And while the SGI does foster a strong sense of community, it's also incredibly supportive of individual expression.
It's about finding that balance, right, between individual growth and collective action.
Beautifully said. And I think that's such a beautiful reflection of the core principles of Nichiren Buddhism. It emphasizes both personal transformation and compassionate engagement with the world. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that we each have a role to play in creating a more just and peaceful future for all.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and respected, regardless of their beliefs, their background, or their experiences.
Beautifully said. It's about building bridges, not walls. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and working together to create a brighter future for all.
You know, I know another common misconception is that Nichiren Buddhism is somehow incompatible with other religions or belief systems. Like, if you're practicing Nichiren Buddhism, you can't also be Christian or Jewish or Muslim or anything else.
Right, that's another one of those misconceptions that I hear a lot. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Nichiren Buddhism is actually very inclusive. It respects other faiths and traditions, and it doesn't demand that you give up your existing beliefs to practice.
So it's not about converting to a new religion.
Not at all. It's about incorporating these practices and principles into your life in a way that feels authentic to you, regardless of your background or belief system. It's about finding those universal truths that connect us all and recognizing that there are many paths up the mountain.
I love that analogy. We all have different journeys, different perspectives, and different ways of connecting with the divine or the universe or whatever you choose to call it. But ultimately, we're all striving for the same things: love, connection, meaning, and purpose.
Absolutely. And Nichiren Buddhism encourages us to embrace that diversity, to learn from each other's experiences, and to work together to create a world where everyone feels a sense of belonging and interconnectedness.
Now, there's one final misconception that I want to address, and it's one that I've encountered myself at times. It's this idea that Nichiren Buddhism is just another form of escapism, a way to avoid dealing with the harsh realities of life.
That's a really interesting one, and I can see how that perception might arise, especially with the emphasis on chanting and inner transformation. But that's a very surface-level understanding of the practice.
So it's not about checking out of reality and pretending that everything is rosy.
Not at all. It's about showing up for life more fully, engaging with the world more consciously, and working to create positive change, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
It's about recognizing that we are not separate from the world and its problems, but an integral part of it.
Exactly. And that we each have a role to play in creating a brighter future.
It's about recognizing that even in the midst of suffering, even when things feel heavy and hard, there's still beauty to be found, love to be shared, and good to be done in the world.
Beautifully said. It's about finding that strength and resilience within ourselves to face life's challenges head on without losing sight of our own inherent wisdom, compassion, and courage.
Now, you've mentioned several times the importance of action in Nichiren Buddhism, so let's dive a little deeper into that. It's not enough to just talk about peace or chant for a better world. We have to take action to make those things a reality, right?
Exactly. Nichiren Buddhism emphasizes that our actions have power. Every choice we make, every word we speak, every action we take creates ripples that extend outward, impacting the world in ways we may never fully comprehend.
So how do we translate those ideals as lofty aspirations into tangible action? What are some practical things we can do in our daily lives to make a difference?
Well, it can be as simple as engaging in compassionate dialogue with someone who holds different views than our own, really trying to understand where they're coming from and find that common ground.
It's about recognizing that most of the time, people's hearts are in the right place, even if their actions or beliefs don't always reflect that.
Exactly. It's about giving people the benefit of the doubt, approaching those conversations with compassion and understanding, and remembering that we all have the capacity for growth and change.
So often we lead with judgment, right? We make assumptions about people based on their beliefs or their backgrounds without really getting to know them as individuals.
It's so true, and that kind of judgment, that's where so much conflict and division stems from. Nichiren Buddhism encourages us to break down those barriers, to challenge those preconceived notions, and to approach each other with curiosity, compassion, and an open heart.
It's about creating a space for authentic connection, even when, maybe especially when, we don't agree on everything.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and remembering that we're all in this together.
And that kind of compassionate dialogue, it's not just about those big, important conversations, right? It's about bringing that same level of awareness and intention to our everyday interactions.
Absolutely. It's about treating everyone we encounter, from our loved ones to the barista, making our coffee with kindness and respect.
It's about those small, seemingly insignificant acts of kindness that can actually have a profound ripple effect.
Exactly. And it's not just about what we say, it's also about what we do.
So what are some other practical ways we can live those values of compassion and interconnectedness in our daily lives?
Well, volunteering our time or resources to causes we believe in is a great place to start.
That could be anything from supporting a local food bank to volunteering at an animal shelter to getting involved in political activism.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. Even an hour a week can make a difference.
And for those of us who are feeling called to make a difference on a larger scale, there's always the option of joining or supporting organizations like the SGI who are actively working to create a more just and peaceful world.
Absolutely. The SGI has been a leading voice for peace, culture, and education for decades. They're involved in so many amazing initiatives, from promoting nuclear disarmament to supporting sustainable development to fostering intercultural understanding.
Their work is incredibly inspiring, and it's a testament to the power of collective action. When like-minded individuals come together with a shared vision, amazing things can happen.
They really can, and I think that's such an important message of hope, especially in today's world, which can so often feel overwhelming and discouraging.
I agree. It's easy to get bogged down by all the negativity.
It really is. But Nichiren Buddhism reminds us that we're not powerless bystanders. We have the power to create the kind of world we want to live in.
It all comes back to that idea of human revolution, doesn't it? The understanding that true and lasting change starts from within, with each individual making a commitment to live more consciously, compassionately, and courageously.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing that we all have that spark of divinity within us, that inherent Buddha nature, and by nurturing that spark, by fanning those flames, we can illuminate the world with love, compassion, and wisdom.
I love that.
It's a powerful and inspiring message, and it's one that I think we can all get behind, regardless of our beliefs or backgrounds.
I agree.
It's about remembering that we're not alone, that we're all in this together, and that by supporting each other, by lifting each other up, and by never giving up hope, we can create a world that's worthy of our highest ideals.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing that we're not separate from the world and its problems, but an integral part of it, and that we each have a role to play in creating positive change.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing that our lives have meaning and purpose, and that by living in accordance with our values, we can create a brighter future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Now, you've mentioned several times the importance of action in Nichiren Buddhism, so it's not enough to just talk about peace or chant for a better world. We have to actively work toward those goals, right?
Exactly. Nichiren Buddhism emphasizes the importance of taking concrete steps to create the kind of world we want to see, both through our individual actions and our collective efforts.
So it's about translating those lofty ideals into tangible action.
Precisely. And that can take many forms, from engaging in compassionate dialogue with those who hold different views, to volunteering our time and resources to support those in need.
It's about recognizing that each of us has a role to play in creating a more just and compassionate world.
Exactly. And that even small acts of kindness, compassion, and courage can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to do the same.
I love that. It's about recognizing that we all have something to contribute, no matter how small it may seem.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that every act of compassion, every effort to create positive change, however big or small, matters.
And that collective effort, that shared commitment to creating a better world, is what ultimately leads to lasting change.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and that by working together, supporting each other, and never giving up hope, we can create a brighter future for ourselves and generations to come.
That's a really inspiring message, but I have to ask, given the state of the world today, with all its conflicts, divisions, and challenges, how can we stay hopeful? How can we maintain that belief in the possibility of a better future when it often feels like things are getting worse?
That's a question that weighs heavily on many minds, and rightfully so. We're bombarded with news of conflict, injustice, and environmental degradation on a daily basis. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, discouraged, even hopeless at times.
It can feel like we're swimming against a relentless tide.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Nichiren Buddhism teaches us that hope is not a passive state of waiting for things to get better. It's an active state of creating the conditions for a better future.
It's about choosing hope even when it's hard, and using that hope to fuel our actions.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that even in the darkest of times, there is always a flicker of hope, a possibility for change, and that it's up to each of us to nurture that flicker, to fan the flames of hope through our actions, our words, and our unwavering belief in the possibility of a better world.
And that belief, that unwavering faith in the possibility of change, is a powerful force for good in the world.
Absolutely. It's what gives us the strength to keep going when things get tough, to keep fighting for justice and peace, even when the odds seem stacked against us.
It's about recognizing that even small acts of courage, compassion, and kindness can have a ripple effect, inspiring others and creating a more just and compassionate world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that change doesn't happen overnight, but through the consistent, dedicated efforts of countless individuals working together towards a common goal.
So it's about focusing on what we can control, on making a difference in our own spheres of influence, and trusting that those efforts, however small they may seem, are contributing to a larger movement for positive change.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we're not alone in this endeavor, that there are countless others around the world who share our values, our hopes, and our commitment to creating a brighter future. And by connecting with those like-minded individuals, by supporting each other and working together, we can amplify our efforts and make a real difference in the world.
This reminds me of the SGI's commitment to fostering global citizenship, of recognizing that we're all interconnected and have a shared responsibility for the well-being of our planet.
Absolutely. It's about transcending those narrow definitions of self and recognizing that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others, no matter where they live or what their background may be.
It's about expanding our circle of compassion to encompass all beings.
Precisely. And it's through that expanded sense of compassion, that recognition of our shared humanity, that we can start to address the root causes of suffering and create a more just and peaceful world for all.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive exploring Nichiren Buddhism. We started by looking back at Buddhism's origins, dove deep into the heart of this specific branch, and explored the incredible global impact of the SGI.
Yeah, we've explored a lot, haven't we? From the concept of the 10 states of life, to the power of chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, from karma and human revolution to the importance of dialogue and engagement, and even touched upon reincarnation.
I think what's really resonated with me is this idea that you don't have to be a Buddhist scholar to find value and meaning in Nichiren Buddhism's teachings.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the core message that each of us has, the potential for enlightenment.
And that by tapping into that potential, by awakening to our own inherent Buddha nature, we can be the change we wish to see in the world.
Exactly. We're not defined by our limitations or past mistakes. Instead, we have this incredible potential for growth, compassion, and wisdom waiting to be unlocked. And the beauty of Nichiren Buddhism is that it provides practical tools and a supportive community to help us on that journey.
It's not about seeking enlightenment as some far-off goal, but embodying it in our everyday lives right here, right now.
It's about bringing those principles of peace, compassion, and wisdom into every aspect of our lives. Our relationships, our work, our interactions with the world around us.
It's about choosing to approach each moment with gratitude, curiosity, and courage, recognizing that every experience, every encounter is an opportunity for growth and transformation.
It's a continuous journey of self-discovery, and it's a journey that ultimately leads us back to ourselves, to that place of inner peace and wisdom that resides within us all. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this final thought.
If, as Nichiren Buddhism suggests, our surroundings are a reflection of our inner state, what changes can you make in your own life to create a more peaceful and just world? It's a question that invites us all to look inward, to examine our thoughts, words, and actions, and to consider how we can each contribute to a brighter future, both for ourselves and for generations to come.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of Nichiren Buddhism.
We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.